Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time to do another one of Mikey's training vlogs. Alright, you guys saw the week up front on there, and we started off with a closed grip bench press. Again, no bands or anything, just straight weight. He managed to get 335 on a closed grip, which is relatively close to his flat bench max. You guys kind of see his delts are a little bit of a weak link here, but again, pretty good. It shows how strong his triceps are, right? Because then once he gets to that weak link right there, the delts are struggling, then he just locks it. He just locks it. And let's come over to another point. You get some people who will chime in about arching, and I saw that with some of the people with Mike's bench. If you don't understand that arching is beneficial, you don't understand physiology, you don't know what any of the experts out there are saying. There are plenty of people with PhDs in the field who will point out to you that arching does not reduce tension on the pecs. Right, it does not reduce tension on the pecs. It seems to create just as much tension as flat back on the pecs, but it's easier on your shoulder joints. It's the safest way to bench. Not only does it let us move the most weight, it's safer. And it does not reduce the tension on the pectorals. A point that people do not seem to understand. There's nothing wrong with arching. Nothing wrong with it. And again, I understand some people are worried about when you have really short arm people in lighter weight classes who have crazy arches and they go all the way to the limits of grip width and they have that little 4-inch range of motion. But that's not what we're doing here. And I don't have any lifters who have that level of flexibility. Okay, it's usually very lightweight classes or women where you see that. But even then, it's meat legal. It's just not the best way to build muscle. But in this case, even a guy like Mike who has shorter arms, our range of motion is substantial. So then for back off work, we did pause benching and then he did floor pressing. He reached failure there, by the way. And there you guys can see people get scared of floor pressing. Look how easy it is to get out from under that. If you're using appropriate size plates, it just drops down and you just slide out. It's the safest press to bail out from under, right? It's completely safe. And then we did some JM presses. Now, next block, I am taking away his pause benching. We have other priorities. We need to build more muscle in the right places. We need to keep bringing his pecs up. We're going to use dips for that. I'm going to start doing incline work to bring his interior delts up because we need that for the benching. We really saw that shoulder weakness on the closed grip. And if we're seeing it come out on the closed grip, possibly a limiting factor on the flat bench. And we had that snafu the other day when we should have had a flat bench PR. So we're going to work on that. Even though we're specializing in deadlifts for him right now. We're doing a lot of deadlift specialization. Then we did his normal stuff that we do, which is pull-ups, pen lay rows, and snatch grip high pulls. So I'm hitting his back from 3 different angles. All right, we're hitting his back from 3 different angles. We're trying to work all elements of it top to bottom because we need to thicken his back up for his deadlifting. Right, we need to thicken it up for his deadlifting and for his squatting. And I will note that he strained a trap a little bit on the high pulls on the second workout this week. So next week I'm going to take him heavier. I think we're just getting just too much total volume and too many total reps. We're getting to the point where there's we don't call it junk volume, but too much warm-up volume. And there's a point where that just creates more fatigue than we need at a certain point. Especially when I have him doing 9 sets of pulls every upper day, right? Because of pull-ups, rows, and high pulls. 9 sets of pulls on both upper days, plus we do all the speed pulls. Gets to a point where it's just too many total reps. So I'm going to bring his reps down and he can increase weight just slightly, and I'm going to have him not try to push progression so hard. Because Mike has gotten to a point where he's doing something like 275 for sets of 10 on the snatch grip high pull. We're getting crazy, and this is why he's pretty yoked for a drug-free lifter. This is why. And again, Mike sets an example of this is the sort of size and strength you guys can reach if you're willing to bulk and you're willing to put in a decade if you're going to go the drug-free route. And the drug-free route's not right for everyone. It's not right for everyone. Probably not right for anyone who wants to compete in anything. And that's just the honest truth. But if you're just trying to get thick and jacked and strong, you can do it, but you're going to have to bulk. He's not walking around ripped these days, right? Mike has put on a lot of body fat, but he's had to get big. Okay? And that's something that you guys have to accept too. If you want to get big and thick, you're going to have to bulk if you're natty. And you're going to have to put in a lot more years. It's going to take you longer. but he's there, and we can always trim him down later. You know, anytime he says, hey, I'm feeling a little too fluffy, we can do a 10 or 12 pound cut, right? Not a problem. And then we can go back to clean bulking again. I don't know exactly what this lift was as far as the numbers. I would have to check notes, and I don't have them in front of me, but he got a PR on a parallel box squat with 50 pounds of band tension. I do recall, though, that it was a substantial PR, meaning we have a squat PR in the tank if we test it, and definitely a box squat PR. We haven't been doing any real back squatting, so we'll see how his technique carries over. But it went good. And then for his supplemental lifts, we did, because again, we're deadlift specializing, we did safety bar good mornings. He did belt squats and reverse hypers. Now, we'll talk about the belt squats in a minute. I'm pulling his belt squats. You know, I had someone ask in the comments, they're like, didn't you say you said something to him about the belt squats? Well, he's still got that belt all the way up on his back. And it's kind of like, I laugh, and I wrote back to that person, welcome to being a coach. Okay, this is something that I deal with all the time. As a coach, I tell lifters all the time, I want to correct this, I don't like this, fix this. But just because you tell them to do it doesn't mean that they're going to do it. Okay, and oftentimes they think they do it and they still don't correct it. There are times when I will change a technique and give a lifter a lot of advice and focus of, I want you to change this, this is how I want you to do it, this is what I want you to focus on. And then the next time they do the lift, they'll send you the footage and go, I did what you told me. And it looks exactly like the same crap they did before. Again, welcome to coaching, guys. Welcome to coaching. Sometimes you have to tell someone something 25 times before it sticks. Now, in this case, again, I'm going to pull these away because I don't like the way he's doing them. I don't want that belt up on his back. The belt should be down around your hips. Back should be in traction. He's gotten stronger on these, though, and it's carried over to his list, but we need to replace it with some other movements. Plus, as he pointed out when we were talking about it, it's starting to become a pain to climb up there with all that weight. That is the biggest problem I found with belt squats. Not that they're ineffective. People are like, you quit doing them. I did. So up to where I was repping out for high reps, 320 on belt squats. You know how much pain it is to get up and down? I feel like I'm risking injury every time I climb up, and when the thing swings against my leg. If anything goes wrong, I'm going to break a foot. I'm going to break an ankle. You know, so I pulled him out for myself. And in his case, he's getting strong enough that it's like, you know, it's starting to get a hassle for him to get up there. So we're going to do some single leg exercises. You know, and this is, again, where the machine shines. If you have access to a really good belt squat machine, use it. And I don't mean the ones where you hold on to it. You should not be holding on to the handles. That is not the best way to do it. You shouldn't do one to where it curves you in. Like I see a lot of people will do them where they're doing them hanging off the edge of a safety arm or something, right? And it's down between their legs off of a bar. That pulls you into a bad direction. That is not even replicating a squat. It's a waste of time, in my opinion, because it feels nothing like a squat. You struggle to reach depth, you know. So I don't like any of that. Really, the machines, the well-designed ones, like the ones they have at Westside, are perfect. But there's a point where if you're doing it natural like this, to where, you know, you're using just free weights, it's really kind of ideal. But the problem is it starts to become harder and harder as you get stronger on it. It becomes really difficult to get set up correctly. It becomes an injury risk just climbing up and down off of stuff with the plates. It starts to become a problem. Not that it's not an effective exercise, but we're running into risks here. Risks that are not worth it when we can do something else. Again, single leg exercises do just as well. Do everything that we want them to do. So there comes a point where they're just safer. But it depends on the setup. You know, I've had clients who do have access to like a cable loaded machine for it, and we use it. We use it if they have one at their gym. None of my people have one in their house. And even I wouldn't, because it's just not worth the expense and the space. It's simply not worth it, you know, to drop a couple grand on something like that for me, for a single exercise. I just can't justify it. Like that same amount of money and space, I'd just buy a full dumbbell set. I could do a lot more. But we finished up with reverse hypers there, and we got over to speed benching, as speed benching always goes well. Speed benching always goes well. And again, we run usually 30% band tension for him. So we run a lot of band, usually 50% bar weight. So when I give those percentages and you see them there, what do we do for speed work? Well, you take your max. So in this case, if your max is 300 pounds, it's 150 pounds on the bar. And then you would run 90 pounds of bands, right? We do it for compensatory acceleration, short breaks, 1 minute breaks. Speed pulls, I like 30-second breaks between sets. And again, it teaches you to set up over and over on these lifts. It teaches you how to get tight and how to do it quickly. And it also tests your conditioning. It will see how in shape you are, especially speed squats. If you're not in shape, speed squats are hard. Now I get people who say they seem easy to me. It's like, well, you might not be actually pushing hard. You might be doing normal reps at 60% or something and calling it speed work when it's slow. If you're actually doing it explosively and hard with the right breaks, you should be out of breath. If you don't do any conditioning or cardio, you should struggle with it. If you're not, you're really not putting in the effort you think you are. Then we did some floor pressing. And of course, this slot will be replaced with incline this coming block. I'm going to take him over to dips and incline bench. Again, I want to focus on his pecs and I want to focus on his front delts a lot more. We need to keep bringing those up to, again, get that bench moving again. His bench is his best lift. And I don't want to make a big deal about it because he's progressed the most on it. And we care mostly about the deadlift at the moment. But we still need to train it. We still need to improve, right? We don't just ignore it. And so again, after his speed benching, we did floor pressing and then he did JM presses. Again, JM presses are a staple for him. We just do them with reverse bands. We keep them in year round. Sometimes I'll pull the bands back out and have him do them raw, which we were doing for a while, and we may do that coming up here if we need the extra tension at the bottom. But in this case, I feel like his elbows are almost getting a little too low there. So again, we could afford to take him down to a lighter weight, pull the reverse bands off, and go back to straight weight at this point to again clean the technique back up, make sure that his triceps are continuing to get stronger. But Mike doesn't have a tricep weakness. And you guys just saw his closed grip benches within 10 pounds of his normal bench, and for a short arm guy, that's different. Guys with shorter arms like this usually do really well at wide grip benching. And then, of course, we did all his other stuff. Somehow the file got switched in these when I put them in, so his high pulls are first. He pulled a trap a little bit doing these, like I said, on this day. And again, he was worried about it. He had to dig a massager in and everything. He had some DOMs, and then he was able to do his speed pulls. He was scared he wasn't going to be able to do his speed work this week because the pull seemed pretty bad, but it healed within 1 day. He just had some DOMs. But again, this is where when we get signs like this, we start adjusting workload. We start adjusting reps. We have to factor these things in. And it doesn't surprise me because, again, we've been doing really high reps on these for a lot of progression for a long time. And we've increased the amount of speed pulls he does. Okay, that combination is putting a lot of work on the upper traps, right? And we may be exceeding their recovery. So again, we'll just focus on a little more tension, less total reps. So we're doing less warm-up reps, just purely effective reps when we bring it down. I'm going to have him do 6s for a little bit. And, that's what Christian Thibodeau does. He actually keeps the reps moderate on those for his athletes. And again, he mentioned me in an article that he put out the other day because we've talked about the snatch grip high pull quite a bit in private. And then, again, we did his pull-ups, and then we did his rows. And we're getting to a point where I may even pull rows out just to give his lower back a break so that we can keep pushing the deadlift. I might replace these with inverted rows if we need to, right? Because I can always do that. And I like pin lay rows because they're very good at teaching you the setup on a conventional deadlift, because look at that. Notice your setup, it teaches you to isometrically contract in a position similar to your conventional deadlift setup. But it also fatigues the low back. And we may get to a point coming up for his deadlift specialization where we replace these. We could replace them with a weighted inverted row, right? And if we do that, we'll still work the muscles we need to work, but we'll take that fatigue off the low back. Now, his speed, a lower day went fine. It went just fine in spite of the DOMs in his trap. So everything went good. Speed looked good. And as you guys notice, again, I had people ask before, why is he doing less speed squats? I thought you keep these things constant, but it's like we increased the total number of speed pulls he's doing because we're doing doubles now instead of singles. So that's why I slightly reduced his speed squatting. just to compensate for it. And even me this week for myself, I did 10 doubles on speed squats and I did 6 doubles on speed pulls. There also reaches a point where your speed pulls, especially when we're doing the doubles as a second workout, they start to slow down when we run really heavy bands. That's something I've noticed. Sometimes we can only handle so many sets, and his were looking good there. And then, of course, we finished up with, again, our most important non-lat and back deadlift accessories, the safety bar good morning and the reverse hyper. And I want to stress again, if you want 2 exercises that will really help build your deadlift up tremendously, if you want to combine them with all your rowing and upper back pulling and speed pulls, these 2 movements. Safety bar good morning is a phenomenal deadlift builder. It is probably, in my opinion, just my opinion, the best bar to use to build your deadlift on a good morning. Right? And then the reverse hyper for obvious reasons, because of all of the low back work capacity it builds, the glutes, everything else. It trains all the muscles of the hip extension, but it really, really helps with low back recovery and work capacity. Whereas in this exercise, we'll just basically stack thick slabs of muscle on you in the right places around the hip extensors, the upper back, middle back. It'll really help with your thoracic erectors, right? And it still works the lower back, quite a bit. Just once you're doing stuff like reverse hypers like this, your lower back gets strong enough that you don't really notice it on stuff like the safety bar good morning. It just doesn't have the same hit anymore, because it actually doesn't hit it quite as hard as these do. But it hits that middle back and that upper back super hard. And these are kind of 2 of my favorite lists for bringing up a conventional deadlift. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.